Hello. Well, Rachel Reeves has announced her spring statement this week, which will have a negative impact on everyone. But, once again, it's going to be the elderly and the most vulnerable people in our communities who will suffer the most. The true figures are quite shocking. And before any keyboard warriors shout fake news, let me tell you that the details we have come directly from the government's own Department of Work and Pensions. And I'll leave a link in the description below to the source document. Now, it's surely clear to many people that the Chancellor is either being deliberately vindictive, naively stupid, maybe badly advised, or simply unqualified and fiscally incompetent. Or maybe it's a bit of each. Welcome to Grey Matters. Hello, and welcome to Grey Matters, the channel that promotes the fact that the older generation still matters and has relevance, and which looks at issues that matter to the older generation. Here at Grey Matters Towers, we are quite shocked at the scale of the austerity measures in this week's government spending review. Rachel Reeves has announced even more ruthless, cruel and heartless cuts to welfare than any of us could ever have anticipated. Now, these brutal policies are supposed to fill that infamous black hole, inverted commas, but it's clear that Rachel Reeves didn't take into account the suffering that they will cause to those least able to cope. Or maybe she has, but she just doesn't care. The government's own Department of Work and Pensions has conducted an impact assessment of her spring statement, just like the government was supposed to do before withdrawing the winter fuel payment. And this is what they found. Now hang on to your hats, folks. 3.2 million families will lose £1,720 a year from their income. Yeah? 370,000 people claiming personal independent payment will lose it. On average, they will lose £4,500 a year. Wow. I mean, these two figures are bad enough in themselves, but when you add rises to interest rates and food and fuel, it brings home how hard it will be for some people to live. And as for mortgage rates, I've heard it said several times on news interviews that it's only a rise of 1% from 4 to 5%. But it's not, is it? It's actually a rise of 25%. A 1% rise will be 4.04%, not 5. It's smoke and mirrors again to confuse us all. Now, the Department of Work and Pensions has also assessed that another 430,000 people who would have been eligible for personal independent payments in future won't get it at all. And finally, 150,000 people will lose their access to carers allowance. 150,000 people who do that job for nothing and just get a little bit of carers allowance to help them through it. That's equivalent to 1 in 10 unpaid carers. According to CarersUK, there are more than 5.8 million unpaid carers looking after their loved ones. Now, Jan Short, the General Secretary of the National Pensioners Convention, has commented on these appalling revelations by the Department of Work and Pensions. She said that unpaid family carers looking after our oldest and most vulnerable save this government and the country between £162 and £193 billion a year. And now they might lose their care allowance because they're looking after someone who will no longer receive part of their payments. Now, the figures she gave came from a 21-22 report by CarersUK, and I'll leave a link in the description below to the source document. Now, if those figures are around 3 years old, just think how much more money these unpaid carers are saving the country, and how many more carers in fact there might be. But as for the state pension, Jan has pointed out that the 4.1% increase in the state pension is already devalued, and by the time it's paid, it will actually be in deficit. And she added that policies that increase poverty and ill health are shameful, yet the rich continue to grow their wealth unabated while ordinary people are hit hard. Again, this government has shown its utter contempt for the elderly and others on low income. It's still pushing through its misguided, ill-informed and heartless land grab from farmers. It's still blaming the last government for all their fiscal woes, yet all the while sending billions to the Ukraine and elsewhere in the world, instead of sorting out the mess here at home. They already have the means to make a difference, they just choose to support other countries instead. Labour MP John McDonnell is also very worried about these welfare cuts. Take a look at this from the Peeps YouTube channel.
I'm here because I'm a Labour MP opposed to austerity. So I was one of the founding members of Disabled People Against the Cuts 12 years ago when the Conservatives introduced their first round of austerity. We said then that they would harm disabled people. In fact, we said there would be loss of life, and that's exactly what happened as a result of austerity. What we're seeing here today is a renewal. Cutbacks on benefits to some of the already poorest people within our society, and people who I think will have inflicted upon them human suffering, and I worry that we'll lose lost lives again.
Did you expect this from the Labour Party?
No, it's come as a shock. What we've had is a cumulative range of shocks. We had winter fuel allowance, which came out of the blue. No one expected that. Then we had the government refusing to lift the two-child cap, which means about 500,000 children remain in poverty. Then we had an increase in tuition fees. Then we had the overseas aid cut, and now we've got this. This is not what I expect a Labour government to be doing, and that's what I'll be saying to MPs every time I meet them. I will try and campaign in Parliament to try and convince Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves that this is the wrong route. If not, I'll be joining demonstrations like this.
Now, John McDonnell has mentioned cuts to overseas aid, and you'll have heard me a moment ago criticising the government for spending money abroad rather than here at home. But don't get me wrong, there are countries out there that really do need help from the UK and elsewhere, especially after natural disasters and disease and famine. But these and previous governments have been woefully out of touch by funding projects abroad, such as £57 million in India, which is $1 trillion economy. Now, some of the cuts Reeves is making is to overseas aid, but are the cuts to areas that would really benefit from our help, or are they, hopefully, to the various non-life-threatening projects like opera houses? I mean, since the election, almost every edition of Grey Matters has been about Reeves and Starmer's continual attacks on pensioners and those on low incomes. What is it about us that produces such vindictiveness? Well, of course, one theory is that our generation wouldn't vote for Labour, which is rubbish. We've all grown up in a world where the parliamentary control has bounced backwards and forwards between Conservative and Labour at every election. The Labour voters from the 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s are still here, and many are still staunchly Labour, except of course when you attack them. More and more of our comments we're getting in our comments section, we're hearing from lifelong Labour supporters who are saying they will never ever vote Labour again. And I would say to Mr Starmer that you are probably now shedding supporters faster than you can get migrant voters to replace them. Well guys, what's your opinion about all this? Do let us know in the comments. Let's keep that debate going. And if you want to be part of our growing community, just like the video, subscribe and hit that bell to be notified when our future content drops. And that's it for now. It's frustrating all this, isn't it? It really is. Thank you for joining us here on Grey Matters. Until the next time guys, it's bye for now.